What actually happens when archaeologists discover something that shakes our historical worldview to its foundations? As a result of some sensational finds, history has had to be rewritten many a time. So what do we really know about the lives of our ancestors? The 8 exciting discoveries that we are going to present to you today prove one thing above all. The past still holds countless riddles that have been waiting to be tracked down and solved since time immemorial. You want to know which artifacts leave even the most experienced experts with open mouths? Then be sure to watch our video to the end. But before we start, check if you have already left us a like and a subscription. Write "I subscribed" in the comments and tell us what extraordinary discoveries you've heard about recently. The most exciting comments will be rewarded with a heart and pinned to the top. New chamber in the Cheops Pyramid. It's hard to imagine, although the world-famous Pyramid of Khufu has graced the Giza Plateau for an estimated 4,500 years. Only 10% of the monumental structure has been explored so far. Particularly astonishing, directly above the entrance, which the tourists normally use, another, up to now unknown chamber has hidden itself all along. That this is not just a small niche is shown by the amazing dimension of the cavity. It is 9 meters long, 2.1 meters wide, and 2.3 meters high. What began several years ago with the help of so-called muon tomography was recently to be demonstrated by the use of an endoscope. What purpose the pointed chamber served, however, is still completely uncertain at this time. Even more exciting for the experts is the question of what lies beneath this groundbreaking discovery. Most experts consider it extremely likely that the Cheops Pyramid hides many more unknown cavities. Sensational tooth discovery. When did our distant ancestors begin to leave the cradle of humanity in Africa and spread across the rest of the world? Well, the stunning find that researchers recently chalked up in Georgia could help us to get a big step closer to answering that question. Specifically, experts at the Orosmani excavation site came across a molar tooth of an ancient hominid species that dates back between 1.77 and 1.84 million years. The team also unearthed ancient stone tools and fossils of extinct animals. Accordingly, we are dealing with no less than one of the oldest evidences of an early human species outside of Africa. In the future, it will be important to expand the excavation area and gain more information about the exact population in the region. Thousands of year old skeleton. Some time ago, archaeologist Octavio Del Rio and his diving colleague Peter Broger made a disturbing find. In a flooded cave system on the Mexican Caribbean coast, the men recovered the crushed skull and skeleton of a person who had died 8,000 years ago. Since the site could not be reached without modern diving equipment, it is reasonable to conclude that the remains got there when the cave was not yet underwater. The last time this happened was at the end of the Ice Age. However, it is unclear if the person died here or if the body was brought there afterward. Unfortunately, nowadays such ancient sites run the risk of collapse or destruction. Accordingly, the cave in which the astonishing discovery was made is also located near a planned railroad line. For fear of looting and destruction, the researchers preferred to keep the exact location of the flooded cave secret. Slime mummies. The Jed Kansiu F. Ankh lived and died in ancient Egypt nearly 3,000 years ago. Although we don't know much about his life, it is certain that he was once a priest at the Temple Amun in Karnak. After his death, the so-called opener of the doors of heaven was mummified, placed in a beautiful coffin, and doused with several liters of black slime. But since this procedure was by no means unique, experts have been puzzling over the background of this strange practice for decades. But what was this black goo in detail, and what can it tell us about the era? To get to the bottom of these questions, researchers at the British Museum analyzed over 100 slime samples from 12 sarcophagi. During the scientific analysis, it became apparent that the subject was composed of vegetable oil, animal fat, tree resin, beeswax, and solid crude oil. However, there did not seem to have been a uniform recipe. The exact proportions of the ingredients varied from coffin to coffin. Particularly noteworthy is the fact that many of the ingredients did not originate in ancient Egypt, but were brought from other parts of the world, such as modern-day Israel or Lebanon. What the mucilage was ultimately intended for cannot be said with absolute certainty. However, research shows that it consisted of the same ingredients as the mummification balm used on the corpses themselves. In addition, the slimy ritual may have been closely linked to Osiris, the god of the dead. The latter was referred to as the Black One in various funerary texts. Black is also the color of the fresh and fertile mud deposited on the banks of the Nile after the annual flood. Tomb of the Wari Queen. Located on the northern coast of Peru, the archaeological site of Castillo de Huarmey is one of the most important in the country. The huge necropolis, which was built 1,300 years ago and covers an area of 45 hectares, is attributed to the pre-Incan Wari state. A few years ago, researchers here again managed an archaeological bang for their buck. They tracked down the tomb of a powerful Wari queen, who, however, had not been laid to rest alone. Thus, in addition to the ruler, 57 nobles, 6 human sacrifices, and 2 grand guards were found. The latter, however, had their feet cut off, probably so they could not interrupt their eternal vigil over the queen's resting place. Furthermore, the researchers found hundreds of precious grave goods, including artifacts made of gold, silver, and bronze, sparkling precious stones, wooden objects, and shells. Disturbing mummy find. In 2018, excitement was running high in Egypt after archaeologists found a 30-ton black granite sarcophagus. Concerns grew that the coffin opening could unleash a hellish curse. But since the researchers thought it was possible that they had stumbled upon the bones of Alexander the Great, they didn't let the superstition of the local population stop them. But instead of marveling at the bones of a powerful ruler, the experts were presented with an extremely unsavory sight: 3 skeletons that were in a disgusting, stinking broth. Particularly disgusting, some local residents believed that the mummy water had healing powers, which is why some actually toyed with the idea of drinking a glass of the fluid. In the meantime, however, we know that the miracle potion is sewage that seeped into the sarcophagus over the centuries. 1,000-year-old Mayan Settlement. Originally discovered by simple farmers in Belize, the ancient Mayan settlement opens a stunning window into days long gone. According to the site, the landscape is dotted with countless white mounds that embody the remains of the original houses. The importance of such discoveries becomes clear when we recall one thing: the everyday reality of many Maya was not characterized by the imposing pyramids and other cult buildings, but by very ordinary things like pots and tools. Thus, it was precisely those artifacts that aroused the special interest of archaeologists. In addition, the experts also found several agricultural tools made of chert, a quartz-like uncrystallized rock. Other tools made of this material were used, for example, to process corn into flour. The houses, in turn, had walls and plastered floors, though some of them also raised major questions. According to them, one building used uniform stones and a different type of plaster. In this regard, it is reasonable to conclude that it did not serve as a residence, but as a kind of communal building. Possibly, the Maya used the meeting place for recreation or to perform religious rituals. Alien finds. Do the disturbing bone finds allegedly recorded in a Mexican mine represent definitive proof of the existence of extraterrestrial life? If alternative researchers like Pablo Enrique Garcia Sanchez have their way, that question can only be answered with a resounding yes. As Sanchez poses in front of the camera with his grotesque finds, he tells us that they are very likely the remains of an unknown alien civilization that once lived in ancient Mexico. The fact that the mummified findings cannot be assigned to any known living being is probably beyond question. But what is it really about? Some users suspect that the strangely shaped skull, decorated with strange symbols, is more likely a deformed machined pig's head. Not to be left unmentioned are also the numerous artifacts that Sanchez will have recovered right next to the bones. Covered in intricate patterns, some of them are reminiscent of classic science fiction monsters with their dark, almond-shaped eyes. So folks, and now it's time for your opinion. Which of the presented discoveries fascinated you the most? And do you know of any other exciting finds from the recent past? As always, write us your thoughts, suggestions, and feedback on today's video in the comments below. While you're at it, remember to give us a thumbs up and a subscription to stay up to date from now on. Finally, feel free to take a look at the other exciting posts on our channel, which you can access by clicking on one of the images here in the credits now. And with that, thanks for watching. Take care and see you next time.